Welcome to The Big Break Show, a podcast where we discuss short-term rentals, entrepreneurship, life, mindset, and everything in between. Here are your hosts, Rafa, Loza, and Jesse Vasquez.
And we are back with another episode of The Big Break Show. I'm here with my co-host, Mr. Jesse Vasquez. What's up, brother?
What is up, my friends? Welcome to today's episode, which is part two. It's a two-part series with Mr. Nick Bastianelli, who was an extra on The Sopranos. I'm just kidding. He was not an extra on The Sopranos. I don't know why I said that from the first episode. It was just a random joke because he's Italian. Is that weird for me saying that, Rafa?
I don't know. Not for me, but someone might think it's weird.
Yeah, I know. You guys, I'm a little weird. But you know what, you guys? I'm super excited because in the first series that we had with him on here, Nick talked about a lot of really deep subjects in his life. And we really dove into the weeds. In this episode, we actually hear, the sunny day type stuff where he's actually going now, where his mindset's at, how he's, and this was there's actually a lot of mindset stuff we talked about here, Rafa. We talked about money, relationships with money, growth. And, this is just a solid episode on two different lives that Nick potentially had, like he did. He changed his life completely.
Mm-hmm. It's funny because we brought him on a second episode so we can talk about his investing journey, and it ended up being another mindset conversation because it was so good. We talked a lot about the relationship with money, overcoming addiction, and just where he's at now and the deals that he's doing. And I mean, what he did in the past year is crazy. So I'm excited, guys. You guys are going to get to listen to another really good conversation with Nick. This dude's a beast. Absolutely love having him on. So hopefully you guys enjoy it. If you do, again, as always, like it, share it, subscribe, hit the bell, all that fun stuff. We do this for you guys. We love you guys. And thanks for always sticking by and showing support. Hey guys, Rafa here. A lot of you guys have been asking me if I have a course, if I teach, if I mentor my short-term rental business. And the answer is I do, actually. I just recently released my very first course. It has about 120 videos. If you're part of the monthly membership, we are adding 2 new videos a month in current issues or projects that I'm working on within the short-term rental business. And we do 1 monthly call live where you have access to me to ask me all the questions you want. So if you're interested in joining the course or if you want any more info, click the link below. It is application only. We only open it to a certain amount of students every month because we want people who are serious, who really want to be a part of this, who actually want to take their short-term rental business and grow it, or are starting from scratch and want to learn how to actually acquire properties doing rental arbitrage. If that's you, if you're serious and you really want to do this, click the link below, schedule a call with me or my team, and we'll get you going. Now back to the show. Nick, what's up, buddy, man? Thanks for coming back. I'm excited to have this conversation today. How are you?
Absolutely, man. So good to see you guys again. Doing great. How are you two?
Life is good, my friend.
We're living the dream, right, Rafa?
Yes, sir. Jesse's over here stressing out to death because he's got so much stuff going on, though. So,
yeah, I am stressing out. Speaking of that, you guys, a midterm rental summit is happening in April of 2023, April 30th and May 1st. You definitely want to be there. Nick's coming. He's bringing his family. Rafa's going to be speaking at this event. We're co-sponsored by Furnish Finder. So everybody be there. We would love to have you. And Nick, dude, welcome back, man. Like, your episode aired today.
I saw that. Exciting.
It's probably my favorite episode we've ever done, Rafa, like hands down, because you shared some super intimate stuff. And I think that a lot of times people deal with these things in their lives and they don't necessarily talk about them. And you thankfully are able to share a lot of that information, not only with us, but everybody that listens to us. So for me, it's one of my favorite episodes. I'm looking at these two in two different ways. Like, that's going to be the dark episode where it's like kind of your life. And now this is like the other side of all the glory and the learning and the understanding and learning yourself and through transcendental meditation and all that other stuff. So now this is like not that it wasn't positive, but it's like, that was the story. Now you're coming out of everything. And I think that's where we want to go. Right, Rafa?
yeah, I mean, we don't need to do an intro. Everybody knows who you are from the last episode. So I want you to talk about, like, the last episode, how we went into that startup part of your life that kind of, you have to go through those like trials and those things that you had to endure, those hardships. And now in this episode, I want to focus it on how that helped you become the successful entrepreneur that you are today in your business, real estate, and in your investing. So today I want to talk about that. And if you can, I mean, the floor is yours, my friend. Let's dive in.
Cool. Okay. So last time we covered a lot of like growing up, basically from like 12 to 20, getting sober, and then opening CrossFit gyms. So CrossFit gyms are super good, wildly fulfilling, but ultimately they didn't provide the level of income that I wanted for my family. So we opened a second, thought that would solve it. Didn't turn out that we solved it with that. So I've always been a huge believer in surrounding myself with people. I mean, maybe this will sound selfish, but I intentionally surround myself with people who have what I want, right? And I just do my best to be of service to them and be a sponge, right? So I don't want to be like a leech on their life where I'm just like, sucking out all the good information. I just try to hang out with people who have what I want and like help them or like create a genuine relationship. And so I had that, right? I had a mentor who owned a real estate brokerage. We were on an annual golf trip. At that point in time, I did not like golf at all. I'm still not sure if I like golf, but I went on this annual trip every year because it was a group of guys who were very happy and stable and successful, honestly. And that mentor offered to basically cover the cost of my test and my state exam to become a real estate agent. I was really hesitant, had no interest at all. But I felt like life was pushing me that way. So I took a leap of faith and I signed up, and that was that, honestly. So I did pretty much nothing with real estate the first 6 months at all. Then I had a good friend who went to one of our gyms ask about purchasing a home. So he was my first client. It was very challenging, honestly. Pretty intense on my relationship with that person. He's one of my closest friends today, but it was a lot, right? We were both learning. It was his first home purchase. It was my first home sale, but I showed up to the closing table in very, in the spirit of keeping with being very transparent. I saw the check that was getting sent to my broker and I knew how much of that was coming to me. And that was eye-opening, honestly, very eye-opening, and kind of changed everything. So we immediately started prepping our gyms for sale. A side story, which we probably won't have enough time to get into today, but my wife's mom had just, we found out she had cancer. So we were taking care of her. So it was this is a weird saying to say when I'm just talking about somebody who had terminal cancer, but it was really do or die time for us, right? So we had the gyms for a long time. They weren't providing the income we wanted, although they were providing everything else. My wife's mother, who was wildly close with, and my wife was wildly close with, we were really looking end of life in the face. And I saw this opportunity and we just went for it, dude. So we prepped our gyms for sale on the hope that this would be the move. It turned out to be a really good fit. My dad's been a builder my whole life. He's been in construction my whole life. I did some construction growing up. I love that stuff. After that one house sale, Nick, that good friend, I'm so grateful for him. He told everybody else, and it just just mushroomed. I don't know how else to explain it other than the referrals just started rolling in. Yeah, I don't know how much. I can keep going on in the story, but that's
I'm actually curious as to how you went from doing just real estate sales and being an agent to actually investing and getting into, because a lot of agents don't ever get into investing. They just stick to real estate sales their entire career.
Yeah. So I did my best to enter real estate with a long-term vision, right? I had already run businesses, true, actually formed LLCs for 8.5 years, right, through the gyms. And so I did my best. I knew I didn't know a lot about real estate yet, and I didn't know what I didn't know either. So I knew there was a lot of variables, but I did my best to plan long-term. So what I did is I initially just got on Bigger Pockets, and I literally listened to every podcast episode, every single episode that was even remotely interesting. I did that literally all day in my truck. Every workout, I read every single free ebook they had, and I became very comfortable with real estate investing. And I knew from the start that's not even the client population I wanted to service in sales. I just knew I needed to learn about that because that was the end game.
You're talking about working with investors or working with families to buy property? Is that what you're talking about right now, or just understanding real estate?
So I knew when I got in real estate that I needed to buy and sell real estate for active income. But I thought that the long game was investing. So I learned everything possible. The broker course took care of how to legally be compliant in real estate sales. I had the construction and building stuff covered, and I knew how to sell and be of service to people. So I felt like the retail, traditional active income buying and selling of real estate I had really covered. So I dedicated literally all of my time to learning about real estate investing all day. I tell people on my team when we onboard people, I don't listen to the radio ever. literally ever. If I'm not listening to a podcast or a book on Audible, then I'm intentionally listening to something I chose on Spotify. But really, most of my time, I literally think of my car as like a mobile university. Like, it's not dead time. If I'm gone from my family, I better make it really fucking worthwhile, to be honest.
Yeah. I think that's how a lot of us are.
I'm the same way. Yeah, exact same way.
Yeah, right. I just wanted to be intentional about my time. So I learned about real estate investing. And, the regular like active income sales just kind of like slowly grew on referral. We didn't get into it last time, but I was saddled with like what I believed at that time to be pretty intense debt as a result of the gyms. Like, I don't remember the number, but it was crippling back then. And it wasn't, it was not leverage. It was not useful debt. We were basically living off credit cards. I don't remember the number. It was probably 110 to 110K plus. At least.
So I have a few questions around that, Nick, because, I want to talk about good debt and bad debt with you for a minute, because you didn't know, right? Like, or did you know what the whole purpose of debt and good debt and bad debt was back then? Or was it you just didn't care and you were using it to kind of get by? I want to talk just a little bit about that and like your whole mindset around that and how it kind of evolved a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. So when we first started our gyms, we were like totally, we were like, yeah, we can survive off ramen and PB&J metaphorically, right? So we had very low expenses. Right when I got sober when I was 20, I became deeply invested in making my life better, right? I have wonderful parents who work very hard and they're great income earners, but I wasn't born into a family where there was brain frameworks around wealth and how to create wealth, okay? So I had to build those from scratch. So I had already read a ton of books and I knew that, utilizing credit cards to live was totally not ideal. I knew that the debt on the gyms I felt was some form of like intentional leverage, right? I was investing in a business. I knew that even if the business didn't work out, I was basically paying for a better education than I probably could have gotten any sort of master's or MBA program. So that made me feel better. But I was already at the point where I knew credit card debt and like debt that wasn't making me more money than it cost was not functional. So it was a deeply uncomfortable, it was wildly challenging mentally to deal with that on a daily basis with 2 infants and a wife that I felt like I still feel intense amount of responsibility for taking care of them. It was not good. I was not blissfully unaware.
Okay. And so can you talk about how you use debt now? I just want, because what I'm trying to get at is I want the listeners to kind of know, like, there's two types of debt. Essentially, there's 2 types of debt, right? There's the bad debt and the good debt. There's the debt that you can use to leverage to build a real estate portfolio to grow and get bigger. And then there's the bad debt that you can use as consumers, where you're just putting everything on the card and hoping you pay back later, right? You're borrowing from your future self, so to speak. So talk a little bit about how you use it now and how you leverage it and like your thoughts behind it.
Sure. Yeah. So, like, just to expand, I 100% agree with everything you said, right? Like, so I think of like leverage as me using debt in a positive way to purchase assets, which will make me more money than the debt costs, right? So if I'm borrowing 100K and that costs $1,000 per month, just for the ease of whoever's listening to this, if I can use that 100K debt, first of all, in real estate, it's incredible because I can buy $1 million asset for whatever, maybe 20% down, okay? Or maybe 25, depending on the lender and the interest rate I'm gonna get. So first things first, right? Like, I can put in a smaller amount and get an asset which is worth way more. And then because I have that, I can rent it out and I'm gonna essentially get paid way more than it costs me to have that debt. I like that debt, and I personally would refer to that as leverage. It's intelligent debt.
Right.
It's paying me back. It's an asset, right? But I think of like crappy debt as like, hey, I'm going to rack up a credit card because I want a super dope Rolex. Like, my Rolex, although I believe it's a cool investment and I personally love watches, I cannot personally influence the value of that Rolex in a meaningful way. If I want to use a really good example of bad debt, then, whatever, using it on something which has literally no implicit value. Like
something like a super expensive luxury car just so you look good, right?
Yeah, right. Or like going to the bar and getting shit-faced with friends, for example. Like, wildly unproductive debt. Not good.
They just dumb debt, buying yourself Yeezys, especially if you're not making money to like support that, your liabilities aren't paying for that stuff. You know what I mean? And that's where that's the big problem, is a lot of people will use their own like W-2 income to pay for this when they can literally have a liability that becomes an asset that's paying for, that's paying for these other things.
Yeah, the way I look at it is essentially any debt that you take should be able to produce income or generate money to be able to pay itself off over time. Like, it's that simple. If it doesn't do that, it's a waste of money, and I don't touch it. Simple as that. Okay, so really quick, Nick. So you got into Bigger Pockets. You started doing all the research like most of us did, right? I did the same thing years back before I got into short-term rentals. I know Jesse did too. So, how did you transition into actually being an action taker to going? Because a lot of us will listen to, a lot of our listeners know. I mean, I want to say 95% of our listeners know Bigger Pockets. Most of them came from the episodes there, right? We all go in there. We all listen to the episodes. We all do the studying. We all read the books. I have them all up here. But at the end of the day, it goes down to us actually taking action. And a lot of us, a large percentage of us, never do, because either we're afraid to take action. We get stuck in that analysis paralysis, thinking we need to know everything before we can take that first step. And how did you transition to actually taking the action and actually making something out of the knowledge that you learned?
Yeah. Okay. So this was pretty intentional. Again, I didn't know where I was going, but I wanted to control as many variables as possible. So because we had all that debt, and it wasn't like debt that I felt was productive or meaningful or helping my family, what I did is I decided to be laser focused on one thing: real estate sales, right? So, I would learn about real estate investment in my free time. I felt like that supplemented and made my real estate sales business better. But I talk to so many entrepreneurs, call, text, email me every week, tons. And, a common theme or personality trait with those people is they have shiny object syndrome really bad, right? And I'm not immune to that. I kind of had that growing up. I like creating a lot of ideas, and I'm very much like a creator naturally, right? But I knew hey, look, real estate sales has paid me more than I have ever seen, which was not a lot back then, to be honest. But this is paying me the most of anything I have experienced. And it would be ridiculous for me to jump ship now and start chasing another whatever, rabbit, What I did is I just blew up my real estate sales business as best I could. I created a repeatable and referable process. And I took a huge portion of every check. I'll tell you the exact breakdown. I took 20% of every single check, and that went to debt. I took 20% of every single check, and that was pre-saved for taxes. I took 20% of every single check, and that was investments that literally sat in a feeder savings account until I knew what to do with it, because I had to learn how to use money well. Initially, that left me with 40% of living expenses, right? So that's kind of how I started. I was like, shit, 40% is more than I ever made before anyways. But I'm totally good with that. This is an upgrade. And then what I did is, as I started knocking out debt, I started reducing further and further until we got to us living off 20% of my expenses. But 20% of 500K, which was, my last year as a solo agent, is way more than I had before. So it was really comfortable, man. That knocked off almost all our debt. We have a very small portion of that left. And I was just stacking cash in a savings account. I just had to really develop fiscal discipline, honestly. I grew up in a house where I felt like if I didn't spend money right away, it was going to disappear. I had a lot of really unproductive mental frameworks. And so I had to discipline myself, seeing that money being there and not being terrified that it was going to go away magically, right? So that was a huge lesson for me. And then I started to stack a decent amount of cash in there. So I started to learn more, and I was like, okay, I'm going to put $6,000 for each of us into a Roth IRA each year. And then I'm going to dump the rest of the money in a standard brokerage account. And all I'm doing, Rafa and Jesse, to loop it back to real estate, is all I'm doing is biding my time until I have enough cash in those investment accounts to transition to real estate. I understand that a lot of people and real estate gurus will say that you don't have to have cash to play in real estate. I know those strategies, right? Wholesale, any type of arbitrage, all of these things, they're cool. But I felt like those might take away from my time from the sales business. And I knew the way that I wanted to participate was more long-term. I wanted to buy assets right off the bat. And I knew that that would probably require how I wanted to do it, some cash. So I was just paying off debt, stacking cash, waiting for my time to pounce. And that happened literally this year. So I started deploying capital intentionally into real estate in, I don't know, probably March 31st of 2023, after, 3.5 years as solo agent, maybe 4, 3.5.
Okay, so there's a few things I want to touch on because I don't want it to go over people's heads what you said, right? Number one, the fact that when you started making a buttload more money, you still stayed living within your means. And most people, they get a raise, they get another check, and they start going crazy and saying, hell yeah, I can now afford the nicer car. I can now afford the bigger house. I can now afford the extra monthly subscription of whatever, little indulgence we like to go into. And you didn't. You were very, very disciplined in terms of staying within that checks mean, right? I mean, I'm susceptible to the same thing. Like I get a raise and I'm like, hell yeah, now I can spend a couple extra bucks here. Now I can go buy this. Yeah. And it's like, it's difficult to stay underneath that. So I want people to understand that. And I don't want it to go over their heads where what you said is key, right? To how you were able to save a lot of that money. You were still living only on 20% of your entire income, which is nuts. It's nuts, right?
Let me bring something up real quick. I think we talked about this in the last episode. If I would have done what Nick did in my 20s, dude, I would be in a totally different situation right now. And I just didn't I would get a raise at my job and guess what I'd go do? I'd go buy an Infiniti G35 and then get another raise. And guess what I go do then? I'd go buy some stupid I'd buy another car or something like that. And that set me back so many times. Like if I would have just put that money, Nick, and put it into a bank and just let it sit there and had somebody that was like, hey dude, buy real estate or hey, do this or investment cash flows. Like I didn't have that. Like I didn't have anybody talking to me about those things. And I didn't find that till later in my life. I always knew that I wanted to do that, but I didn't know how. I didn't think it was even possible.
Yeah, Jesse and Nick, it's that relationship with money, because the second part I want to touch on was having that mental strength to be able to look at your bank account grow and grow and grow and let it sit there. And a lot of us are like, yeah, it is. It's very scary. You're like, oh my God, I have all this money sitting here. I need to put it into something, or it's going to disappear, or someone's going to take it away. I mean, the government, dude, legit, there's a fear where the government might shut down and the bank won't let me pull my money out. You know what I mean? And it's something with that relationship of money that we have where, I mean, I don't know, maybe it relates to other people, but for me, as soon as I get a certain amount, I'm like, that's it. I can't, when it gets to a certain amount, I have to throw it into some sort of investment. I have to throw it into some sort of endeavor, something. I don't care even if I have to go and spend it, because I feel like I'm not doing anything with it. It's very difficult to get to that point where you have all this money just building and building and building and building and building and being having that mental fortitude to go, okay, I'm good. I can still let it continue to grow until the time is right to actually do something with it. And that's a big thing, man. How did you learn to get to that point? What made you shift your mindset to that?
Yeah. So this is totally a result of being in AA, very transparently, honestly. So I was in a habit of regularly and as honestly as possible evaluating myself and how I operate and what's going on in my brain, right? And so I caused myself a lot of pain as a teenager because my way of functioning and living was really unproductive, right? I built those character traits and personality traits and things really unintentionally. They were basically survival mechanisms, And when I got sober, I realized hey, a lot of this stuff kept me alive, but it's really not good for life, right? This is really bad as a norm. This is not helping. And so what happened is I was, as a result of that, right? One of the countless incredible benefits of getting sober and having the really challenging experiences I did is I was really attentive to what's happening in my brain. So I realized hey, I'm fucking terrified of money. Just literally, it runs my whole day. I am immobile. I had a lot of anxiety and panic problems, but money wasn't good for me. I wanted all of it, but I also had no idea what to do with it.
Yeah.
And it was really uncomfortable when I got any. I didn't feel worthy. I totally was afraid of, people who make a lot of money, they must be doing something illegal. So what I did is I started reading a shitload of books about how to think about money.
Yeah. Were you embarrassed of your money, Nick? Were you embarrassed of your money? You were embarrassed of having it?
I wouldn't say embarrassed because I still felt broke as shit. And I still don't think I'm wealthy at this point in time. I was just scared, honestly. Like I didn't feel capable, deserving, or worthy of having any sort of, like, I didn't feel like I could manage it, you know? So I wanted to fix that. And I read a shitload of books about, how to think about money, how to attract money into my life, how to become competent with handling it. And all these books taught me how to become like, I didn't make these. I had a shitty framework. I read enough books and just adopted other people's ideas and just kept doing it even when it was terrifying because I knew it was better than what I was doing.
And it wasn't even the ideas. It was just a different frame of thinking about things, really. It was probably always there, but you just never had that, like, that perception of a way. And that's where it's really incredible to have friends or mentors we don't even get to see them, right? Or they're people that write those people the books that you're reading, those are mentors at the end of the day, whether you like it or believe it or not. Like, they're truly mentoring you. And they just flip the way that you think about assets or money or, that monetary stuff, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah. So that was it. That's how I did it. It was deeply uncomfortable. I've been my buddies who I'm real close with, like my best friend a long time, Cam, we still talk about broke Nick. Like that still lives in me, Yeah. That dude is still hanging around. And if I get really hungry, angry, lonely, tired, that dude may come out, but I just do my best, to take care of myself so I'm not susceptible to falling back into old habits, I guess.
Yeah. Nick, do you find yourself like, and I do this, like I'm a person that feels this way. Like, do you still feel like you're broke in this like weird way?
Dude, yeah, yes, absolutely. Yeah. But now I'm kind of now I'm dealing with a new thing, honestly. This is totally an answer to your question where I was stacking cash and being really intelligent. And I still think I'm making really intelligent decisions. But now I'm kind of where you were talking about, Rafa, where I had all this cash stacked. I started deploying it. First, I got a little bit of crypto, dabbled there for a few months, and then dumped literally everything to my person, more than I have to my name into real estate. So I really actually don't have any liquid capital. I'm actually kind of like liquid broke.
I got the term for you. You're asset rich and cash poor, buddy.
Totally. Temporarily, at least. So it all went into real estate really quick, dude.
You have to do that. Like those are calculated risks that you have to do. Like you just have to. Like there's no other way around it. And that what you're doing, that risk that you're taking now is going to pay off tremendously for you in the future.
Yes. So I agree 100%. This was another really intentional decision, right? Like I was betting on me. I have been broke before. And I know that I was okay and my family was okay. And so I made some rules in life. Like if I want to buy a book, I'm never thinking twice about buying a book. If I'm really interested in a coach, I will invest in myself all day is the long story short, right? And so I knew that I would experience temporary pain by basically liquidating all my shit and buying assets. But long term, I was betting on myself. And just like I thought in the gyms, if I lost, our first real estate deal this year was probably cost me $65K, or I invested $65K. I thought even if I fuck this whole thing up and lose $65K, it's just like the gyms. I am going to learn so much. And I felt like, hey, if shit hits the fan, I'll still be living, and I will have learned a lesson that most people are too terrified to ever actually risk learning. So that was it, man. Just got to go in. I
absolutely love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, got to go all in.
Super
Not all
true.
in, but got to bet on yourself.
You guys all buy something like a shirt or something, and I'll feel bad about buying it and I'll go take it back. Like I almost like I don't need it. Like, dude, I'm serious. Like I'll do that kind of stuff. It's freaking weird, dude. Like I don't know how to like not be that way.
I do the same thing. Honestly, it's very challenging for me to, at this point in life, to not purchase things which make money.
Rafa's laughing at me. Rafa's like, look at this guy.
No, it's funny, guys. We all think about the same things kind of similarly. I just spent like $3,000 on my office setup, right? Everything that I'm sitting in here. Yeah. And the entire time I'm like, what a stupid waste of money. Like, why am I doing this? But then at the end of the day, like, this is how I convinced myself, right? I now love walking in here and sitting down and doing work and recording content and playing places. Like, I love it. And it all comes down to, you know what? It's not that I spent the money. It's that I invested in my place of like comfort, my little happiness, right? Like I want to come into something that's going to make me really smile and be happy, because it's kind of like investing in myself. Yeah, sure. It's a bunch of junk and like stuff that I absolutely don't need, right? I could have had just a regular mic and maybe just a computer mic and headphones and don't need it, but I absolutely love it. And it makes me happy. And at the end of the day, that justifies my purchase. Well, same thing, right? It's difficult for a lot of us to go and buy something because we can't justify that we're worth buying that for ourselves. Like we need to invest all our money and make more money and grow and do more and more and more and more. And we never stop and go, well, that shirt might look good on me. Let me buy it because it's going to make me happy tomorrow. Right, Jesse? Like, and I mean, dude, like it's serious. It's a thing. Again, it goes back to the relationship that we have with money. It really does.
Rafa and I went to a football game and I was like, dude, I'm just going to go to Target and buy a 49ers shirt because it's probably going to be way cheaper than if we went and bought it at the game. And Rafa's like, dude, it's like $20 difference. Like, come on, like it's going to waste time. You're not going to show up. Like my brain was like, I'm going to spend $40 more I need to spend. And the Rafa's just like, dude, what are you doing?
I was like, bro, I'll buy it for you. You're going to be like 30 minutes late. It's not worth it to show up. Right. And luckily he ended up showing up to the game. But it's true, though. It's true. You got to look at that. Like it's just that whole relationship that we have, not just with money, but with what we feel worthy of, like indulging or investing in ourselves. Like a lot of us don't think twice in the crap that we spend. But when it comes like out of your like livelihood or what you now know what you can be doing. And I think this only happens with like people when they're investing their money too, right? Because when you can realize where that money can go and what the potential of what that money can do, you're like, shit, should I really be like spending it on this? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So this makes me think about two things. The idea of time versus money. And I will always spend money on buying back my time. Like always. Right? Because my primary purpose is to be a maximum service to my family and my loved ones nearby. Like, I love work. I like work a lot. It's really fulfilling. But I realize that at the end of the day, I'm doing that to participate in life. So time versus money.
Well, I say this all the time, Nick. I'm 100% on board with you, right? Look, we will always get another paycheck. Regardless if we lose everything right now, we will always get another paycheck. I can lose everything I have right now, and I'm terrified of losing everything. It's what makes me want to work more, right? Like it's what pushes me against the wall and says, hey, it's time to move. But if I lose it all today, I can start over, and I'll still be able to do it. But God ain't giving me another year at the end of the whatever time he's already accounted for me, right? Like there's not another day that's coming. So if I'm going to waste a day doing some thing that's going to kill my day that I don't need to, where I can kind of have someone else do it and cost that money, I'd 100% pay for it. It's the cost of your time versus what the cost of the actual task will be.
Yeah, so I remember the other thing, right? So time, I'm 100% with you, Rafa. Like I'll buy my time back all day. That's very valuable to me. I assign like a really high dollar cost to that. But okay, so I still think about this a lot, right? Because my financial life changed really fast. Or I mean, pretty fast for an average bird. There are obviously people who go viral and like their shit changes overnight. But I like had to really think about this, and it's hard for me to put into practice. Like I am just working every day to become more comfortable on spending money on the things which are meaningful to me, right? So like, I don't want to like randomly buy shit that's not meaningful, right? Like if an office was deeply meaningful to me and improve the quality of my life, like it does for you, then I would. And honestly, I love the office I'm sitting in right now.
Yeah.
But like,
yeah,
I don't
cool.
just go like to come back to like I love cars. But like, dude, I don't get 300K worth of value out of a dope car. Like yet, not at that level of wealth. You know what I mean? So I'm just trying to buy the shit that's meaningful to me and become okay spending with that. So literally a goal I had last year was to spend $20,000 on vacations for my family because I had a really fucking hard time spending money even on good things, right? Like I literally worked to spend more time with my family, but I was caught in this shitty loop where I was like, man, it's still actually hard to spend money on my family and myself. And so I started setting goals around doing that stuff, because I knew I couldn't waste any more time being in a place where I could live what I wanted to live and like not doing it because I was afraid. I thought that was really dumb. So experiencing a lot of the same stuff you guys are for sure.
Yeah. Nick, I'm going to ask you this question right now. Everybody thinks you're probably going to have a different or an answer that I expect you to have. Did money or does money make you happy?
Okay. Oh, I thought about this a lot. Yeah. So, to some degree, I suppose. Actually, you know what, dude? No, I literally thought about making a post about this yesterday. We currently have a bank account that has had more money than I've ever seen in any person's bank account for this hotel. And I was looking at it all pile up yesterday. And I thought, And I really thought when I saw this much money sit in an account, I was going to like feel different. And I don't. So I guess this is interesting because I literally was thinking about that like 18 hours ago. No, I do think money makes life simpler. Honestly, though, there is some value. My life has genuinely improved as a result of having more money. I used to not go to the doctor literally ever, like at all. Like lots of sports injuries, totally should have gone. And I was just afraid, and I don't have to be afraid of stuff like that anymore. So does it make me happy? I don't think so, but has it improved the quality of my life? Yeah.
Yeah. And improve the quality of your kids' lives and everything, everybody else around you probably. Yeah. And I think people, for the most part, and me being a victim of this myself, and probably Rafa and Nick as well, like I grew up in a middle-class family. Like it wasn't money talked about. When I was a kid, dude, I thought that if I had $1 million in the bank, I would be freaking like living this, like I'd be floating like Adam Sandler in freaking, that pool that he's given from his dad, he's just like spitting water out of his mouth. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I thought like $1 million was. But at the end of the day, you guys, it's not a lot of money, but money does make you happy to a certain degree, but it doesn't, it's not that moment that you just like look at your bank account and you're just like, holy crap, I have all this money. Like you don't feel any different than you did the day before. Like it doesn't change. It's not like that, dude. And I think that we were kind of like programmed to think that in this weird subconscious way that, even through childhood and watching like, MTV Cribs, and because that's what I grew up to, right? It was like MTV Cribs and people like flaunting their money and stuff. I expected there to be this different type of thing, but I know a lot of people that make a lot of money that are truly unhappy, like really unhappy. So I think it's not real. Like, it's almost like, and that's how I think about money. Rafa and I were talking about this one time. I was like, dude, I think money's just like air. It's like you can't see it and you can't feel it. You can use it for certain things, but it's like, it's not really there, and I think that it's just a weird, I don't even know how to explain that or articulate that.
It's a numbers game. I look at it like this. I never touch it. It goes from one number on one screen to another number on another screen. Simple as that. It's never going to become a physical object, right? Because 99% of us no longer have cash or going to the bank. Everything's on Apple Pay or Bluetooth or cards. It's a numbers game. Either I have a lot of numbers on this screen or I have a lot of numbers on that screen. And all I'm doing is transferring numbers back and forth, and it's never going to get touched. So whatever numbers I need to have on this screen to make this easier, I will do. Simple as that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Money's interesting, right? Like it's just a social construct. This might be actually, this conversation would have been really challenging probably for me to listen to like 15. I would have been like, the fuck are these guys talking about? Like only people who have enough money can have a conversation. I was like, sign me up, dude. Get me in one of those seats, And, but yeah, I do think, guys, like there's, I think in order to become successful or competent enough with money, you have to be able to step out of the emotional attachment to money, right? Like, I don't really know anybody who has become very successful and wealthy who's like so emotionally attached to it that they're like freaking out at all time, right? Like you have to kind of be able to sit back and realize like, hey, I can create money without the involvement of my own money. Like,
Nick, that comes with growth. That comes with the part of the getting to that money is the part of the growth that comes with it. There's two parts to this, right? If you start off with coming from either nothing or something, a little bit of something, whatever the case it is, right? But basically no money to coming into money, it's the growth along the way that you're getting. And part of that growth has to do with the way you relate to money, right? People talk about this all the time. When somebody goes from 0 to $1 million overnight because they hit the lottery, that they didn't have that relationship of growth to that money. Therefore, within a year, that money's gone because they don't know what to do with it. They never had that growth. Nobody taught them. Nobody showed them what to do. But for the dudes like us who started kind of, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I'm talking about myself here, is when you start with pretty much no money, like I was just talking about this the other day. I used to eat chicken, the Carl's Jr., the chicken sandwiches, right? The 99-cent chicken sandwiches. I haven't ate any of those in years because they're bad for you, but like that's all I could afford to eat. And but like when you come from 0 to what you have now, right? And I'm not like wealthy by any means. I'm like still super I still think I'm super broke, but like I now make money more than what I used to make, right? But that relationship that you get along that road is part of it. It comes with it. It's part of the building and the growth.
I think most people would be really pumped to trade places with us financially. And that makes me very grateful, right? But so it's hilarious And again, I'm not saying I don't view myself as wealthy, but I just love it's just comical usually to think about, like, I know I'm talking to a bunch of successful dudes and this pops up all the time. But just to go back to, I think it's really important, right? Like, Jesse, you brought it up, right? Like, I think it's really easy to get stuck in like very focused on the destination. I literally used to say to people like, hey, when I have $2.7 million, I can pull 4% per year. And then I used to say this, I will be happy then. I will feel safe.
4%.
And then I have a really wealthy friend who'd say, really, Nick? He's just like, and he became individually incredibly wealthy and successful. He'd be like, really? Is that the number? I'd be like, it's it, Brett. 100%, man. I'm good there.
Yeah.
And what I started to learn is, when I was really like in the challenging parts of being like deep in debt with the gyms, trying to figure out what I want to do, somebody connected me to some really successful real estate investor who I literally had one phone call with years ago. But I got on the phone with him and I said, dude, I'm really struggling. And he said, why? And he said, because I'm broke. And he said, don't ever say that to me ever again. And I thought, this is the first time I ever talked to this guy. He's like, what? Or I was like, what? I am. Like, I don't have money. I need to sell these gyms immediately to save my family. He's like, you may not have money, but you are not broke. And I was like, what? He's like, look, our mutual friend told me about you. Like, I know the amount of experience you have gained from the decisions you have made in your life, starting a gym really young and all this business. Like, you are not broke. You just don't have cash right now. All right. So don't ever get that confused and never say that to me or anybody else again. And I was like, this guy is going hard, and, and I was initially really put off, but what he just kind of like literally one conversation, this is not an exaggeration, that guy changed my life because I stopped being afraid. I realized that, hey, I might not have money now, but I have something which you can't buy. You cannot purchase it. And it's really unlikely you're going to get it in a school setting without actually doing this stuff. And that was it, dude. That's when I stopped being less afraid, honestly. I mean, it was still scary as shit, but that gave me the bandwidth to participate in life, actually. Like, get off the bench.
I love it, man. Yeah, and change your mindset. You didn't think about yourself as broke, I'm assuming, at that point. Maybe cash broke, but not, life experience broke.
Dude, I thought I was doomed, man. I thought I was broke, poor, all the versions of it, and never getting out of it. And this guy reminded me that, like, hey, just because you don't have cash doesn't mean you're worthless. Like, it just means you don't have cash.
I love that.
And that can change at any time. And so, honestly, I know you want to get back to how I got off the bench, but like, I didn't want to be a tire kicker. And it was scary buying the first investment property this year, even with 3.5+ years of full-time selling a shitload of houses. But I had enough faith that I would be okay. So I put $65K in and thought, I'm either going to make money or I'm going to learn, or maybe hopefully both. And it was just that, like, I think so many people are really prone to analysis paralysis, right? Like, I'm going to evaluate this short-term or this midterm rentals until the cows come home. And they do it until that property is gone, right? And then they repeat that process and they think they're using their time wisely, but they're actually just wasting a shitload of time because they're not actually willing to get involved. So, like, is it bad that you evaluate 100 properties before you buy one? No. But do you need to evaluate 100? No. You know what I mean? Someday you got to push your chips in and get involved, dude. And the faster you do one deal, next Thursday, we'll have acquired 20 short-term rentals in 9 months. We have gone from zero cash flow from real estate investments. We have cash flow elsewhere. From $0 cash flow as of March 30th of this year to somewhere around $675K in gross annual cash, like income, not cash flow, gross income.
Holy smokes.
Or expenses. And that is 9 months, dude.
That's insane, dude.
Yeah, I want to get into the hotel deal. Like, I want to break into that now, you guys. So, like, like on the last episode, we talked about all that stuff. Like, dude, you and Rafa and your team, and you guys are bringing funds together. Like, I want to do what you guys are doing. Like, talk to us about that, dude. Like, break this down.
Okay, so what happened? Me and Austin and I partner on a lot of stuff. Austin and I bought one short-term rental in Traverse City. It was excellent. while we were furnishing it, building the furniture, we saw one in the sub that was for sale. So we went and we bought that one. All right. Then what happened is I went to my stepsister's wedding in Petoskey, Michigan. Typical entrepreneur. I was busy and I didn't book my hotel room early enough. So we ended up staying at this inn, which was like 2.5 miles away from where the wedding was. We were on site and I kept seeing these people who I thought were in their 70s walking around all day. Turns out they were in their 80s. This is another lesson about action. I said to my sister and my wife while we were checking out, I said, I'm going to ask that guy to sell this thing to me today. And my sister was like, no, you're not. Like, are you serious? She was like uncomfortable, right? She's like, don't do this, while we're around, like, how
Don't
long
be that guy.
Yeah. Like, what's wrong with, but my sister knows how I roll. So I talked to the dude. Turns out he grew up 20 minutes from where I live. I've sold a zillion houses where I used to live, and he bought this to retire. And he knows a little bit about real estate. And I said, hey, will you sell it to me? He said, you're too young. I said, you got a number. Just tell me your number. Everybody's got a number. He said, yeah, my number is 2.5. And I said, done. I will underwrite it and I will call you within 24 hours. I'll call you next business day. He's like, whatever. No, you won't. I'm like, okay, sounds great. Give me your number. We came home. We had no fucking clue how to underwrite this at all. But Austin and I, on the way home from Traverse City, one day work, prepping one of the short-term rentals, we heard Tim Bratz on a podcast. And we were like, this guy is doing what we want to do. We signed up just right away, signed up for his $1,000, what I think is $1,000, Commercial Empire, like the online thing to learn about commercial. And that we had just done that a couple months before. So we're like, we know who to ask. So we literally just leaned on all these friends we had made in legacy family through Tim. And we asked them to underwrite it. And while Nick Burton, their like underwriter, Nick's the best. He takes care of all of their
he's awesome.
acquisitions. Nick's the shit. Nick, I brought it to him at one of our noon meetings, and he's like, literally, go get it under contract now. And I was like, dude, we were at no investments. Then I had to like get over a 375 and a 325 now you're telling me to buy a 2.5 million. Okay. So he helped us craft 3 offers. We used their template for a 3-offer letter of intent. It was the first one ever that I'd ever done. And we drove and dropped it off by hand. And then they ended up accepting one of the offers. So that was it, dude. It was just about taking action. I didn't know shit about shit. I didn't know anything. I just knew who to ask.
Yeah. I was going to say, what I love about that? You paid to get into that door. A lot of people were like, Rafa and I will get messages. You'll probably get messages on your DM, especially after this comes out, like, hey, how do I do that? Like, you paid to get into the door with Tim, and then you paid to have access to those people. This is why like these paid mentorships are so freaking important, you guys. Like, Nick's never done a deal like this, not this big. He was figuring out as he was going.
Dude, I am such a big believer in mentorship and coaching. I've invested a lot of money into that. And I invested a lot of money in that even when I didn't have money, because I knew that was the way out, right? Like, I think, Jesse or Rafa, your courses are wildly, they're invaluable, okay? Because when I buy your course for $5,000, all right, it's easy to look at that as an expense. But what I would encourage people to think about is I am going to literally buy Rafa and Jesse's time. I'm purchasing 3, 5, 7 years of them experimenting and spending their own money. And I am getting such a discount because I don't have to experience the pain and suffering of learning this the wrong way.
Mm-hmm. Plus the network.
Pay $5,000 and do it right, right off the bat.
Yeah.
So that was the rationale, dude. We bought the short-term rentals in Traverse City. We set up those accounts, and those accounts immediately started. We didn't take it. This is another lesson. We didn't start like lining my pockets and buying a dope Audi.
Right.
We bought legacy.
Yeah.
We purchased our enrollment in Commercial Empire, and then those businesses paid for our monthly mentorship, which I will pay for that shit to be in Tim's group for as long as he has it.
Yeah.
I do not I am so about it. So $1,400 a month, the short-term rentals buy that. So buy investment properties because they'll buy other shit for you.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, it all just worked out. It was just, all you can do is just take the next best step. And those are really starting to compound, dude. I mean, it's happening fast.
Okay. So you guys got the acquisition. You met with Tim. I'm walking through this in my head right now. You didn't know what you were doing. And this is something that so many entrepreneurs do. And this is what separates like a successful entrepreneur from like an analysis paralysis person. Dude, you didn't know what you were doing. You just did it. And you were figuring it out as you go. Like super, super important. Everybody listening right now that's running numbers, that's messaging Rafa or myself, like trust yourself and what you're doing and just get into it, like no matter what. And that's exactly what successful people do. They'll just get into it and they'll figure it out as they're moving along. So like nothing's ever going to be perfect, you guys. Like there's no perfect time. There's no perfect scenario. I mean, Nick, you showed up at a wedding and we're just like, dude, I want this. And all of a sudden, look, here you are, however much longer making things happen. It's the action, man. Like, and Tony Robbins, like, I remember when the first time I ever heard Tony Robbins, he was just like, action, take action. This was like back in, I don't know, 2014 or something, the first time I ever heard him. And I'm just like, dude, this guy's voice is annoying. All he says is take action. Fast forward 8 years later, and I'm sitting here just like, dude, this guy was right the whole time. Like, all these people talk about the same stuff in a different way, and it all goes around to the same freaking thing. Like, literally. It's crazy, man.
Yeah, dude, it's totally nuts. Yeah, I mean, we did just take action. We took a leap of faith. And then what Austin and I did is we got on with Nick and then Fadi, who's their legal, and they helped us structure it. But the next really intentional move we made is Austin and I paid to go to Tim's small mastermind, right? So we went to Cleveland and I literally was like, look, I got this 18-unit under contract. Nick loves this deal. I don't have a fucking clue how to raise money, honestly. No clue how to raise. Who do I talk to as an SEC attorney? This thing prints cash, but whatever. So I don't remember what that probably cost. I don't know what Tim's stuff cost. Probably $2,500 each without travel and hotel. But we knew if we got there, we'd figure it out. And Tim and the whole crew literally used our hotel as an example and built the whole deal for us. I shit you not. They spent probably 2 hours, dude. And, I think it was great for the rest of the class. That was it, man. And I wrote down everything that dude said. And then I did it over and over at home again. And then me and Austin did it together.
I wish I would have gone to that.
Yeah, let's go to the next one. I literally will not miss it. I will be there.
That's how I got into Legacy. I went to the cabin one back in March.
Oh,
yeah.
Really?
That one cost me $5,000 to go to. I told you about that one. Yeah, well, dude, I met them after I signed up to Legacy. We ended up meeting at one of the meetups. Anyway, continue. I'm sorry, Nick. Go ahead. Continue with the story.
Okay. So, yeah, another funny thing about life, right? Like, you just make the right decisions and you got to have faith it's going to work out. So we built out this deal. And then what happened is we're like, me and Austin are like, hey, look, like, we have multiple businesses and we can't be on-site managers. But we remember this dude, Rafa, who was super nice in Denver, who we think has a shitload of short-term rentals and is probably really good at it. I'll never forget Rafa. I said, what do you do all day? And he said, man, I got a lot of free time. Like, and I was like, shit, I am literally trying to find time to go to the bathroom, actually. You know what I mean? Like, this dude has whatever, 50 units. And
65.
He has the ability to play a game, like video game. I thought this is mind blowing to me.
Yeah.
I have to call that dude. So we called all the Legacy staff. We asked Nick, Fadi, and Tim. We said, hey, we want to talk to Rafa, get him involved, but we don't know him. Is he a good dude? Every single person said, I would absolutely do a short-term rental deal with Rafa. No questions asked. He's awesome. So we got 3 for 3.
Look at you.
We called. You were like, hey, we'll do like a meet and, whatever, surface level call. That went great. So that's how life works, right? Like we had to take a leap of faith that you're a great dude based on what other people said. And so that's why it's really important to put yourself out there, right? Like I would never turn down a podcast episode. I don't give a shit if you have 50 followers or 500K. You can never underestimate the reach that, somebody might have or the importance of a conversation. So that's it, man. That's how I came to be here, I guess, too.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, I mean, dude, I'm just trying to wrap my head around like how long ago was this?
We got it under contract in July, I believe. We utilized
4 months.
Tim's preferred mortgage brokers at Marcus Millichap. And that's when the market was changing really rapidly.
Yeah.
So we did an incredible amount of work. They shopped it out to a ton of lending institutions, banks, credit unions, etc. But a short-term rental, so there's less lending options. We went all the way through. We were supposed to close November 8th. And when the hotel went up before that bank, that credit union's committee for final approval, they turned it down, basically. So we were getting co-funding at that point in time, 30% from the SBA, 50% from the credit union. SBA pulled out. The credit union initially said, hey, we'll cover 15% of their 30. And then they just backed out. So we were left like, dude, we are 3 or 4 months into this thing, an incredible amount of work. We have a lot of money from people who've invested with us sitting in the bank. We're like, are we going to call it quits? Are we going to wholesale this thing? So we just dove back in, dude. We decided to double down, get after it. We stayed with our brokers at Marcus Millichap. They found us a new bank who's been incredible. We got final committee approval last week, which is the clear to close in the commercial world. We raised additional funds. We're supposed to close next Thursday. So it's...
Dude, I got to say really quick, though, because Nick, you and Austin are like beasts, man. You guys are legit, legit. I don't even know how else to say that because, I tried. I went out to pretty much everybody on my contact list to try to raise the other funds that we needed to raise. And literally everybody's telling me to stay away from hotels. Everybody's telling me not to invest right now. I can't do it. And you guys literally popped up all this money out of thin air. And I'm like, dude, it's not easy to raise funds. You guys dug in deep, dude. You guys went out and put your egos aside and all the other nonsense. You guys made this deal happen, dude. No joke.
So I want to tell some people some really important things there, right? So we raised $1 million in 2 45-minute webinars.
2 45-minute webinars, yeah.
Yes, that was cool. That was maybe you remember, Rafa, maybe it was like a Monday and a Friday or something.
I was there on one of them.
Okay, yeah. So that was right. And we were super jacked. We raised $1 million in 90 minutes. This is incredible. 2 people pulled out who gave verbal commitment. That was eye-opening. Then we put things on pause until we got final committee approval last week. And then Austin and I raised $500K on Monday and Tuesday of this week. So
that's nuts.
Yes. But the important thing that I think everybody in this audience should know is that Austin and I took a very aggressive haircut on our equity in order to protect all of our investors, right? Austin and I were supposed to have 25% and 25% with no cash out of pocket and a $100K acquisition fee. We waived our $100K acquisition fee. And because the bank now wants us to put more money down, Austin and I got to redo the math. I can do it for you, 1320. Austin and I have cumulatively lost a $100K acquisition fee. We still have rights to it at some point, but we don't get it now. Mm-hmm. We lost 9% equity each, right? So when the bank said, hey, we're going to give you less money, what they told us to do is water down our investors' return. It was the first thing they told us.
Yeah.
They said you should have in your SEC attorney, your PPM, it's called, your offering. You have the legal right to water it down to 3.1%. And I thought, so interesting to me that you know that. That was weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I also thought there's no way that I am going back on my word.
You promised them.
I promised these people 4% equity, period. And I literally don't give a shit what has to happen in order to make that happen. This deal will die before I take their money and change it on them. There's just no. So yeah. Austin and I took a big ass haircut, dude. And I think that's important. And I firmly believe that will be a very valuable decision for me long-term. Really important.
I agree with you 100%. I think everybody that's invested in it is going to see that you guys are legit dudes, that you guys hold true to your word, and they're going to continue to invest. I mean,
that's the hope.
I remember when you came to me with the news and I was like, well, this sucks, right? But there's nothing you can do about it. You got to take it head on. I mean, we could have all cried and been like, nah, I'm out, Yeah,
we absolutely could have. And I think a lot of people would have. But, yeah, I mean, it's a big deal, dude. I think we have an exceptional opportunity. I'm really excited about it. And I could have played afraid.
I'm excited about it.
Yeah.
So what's those returns going to look like? Like we're kind of talking through things you guys are going to do. I'm assuming some type of a rehab there. I mean, can it kind of break the weeds of the numbers real quick on what your projected like pro forma numbers are looking like?
Sure. So our purchase price is 2.5, like renovation, including design, just basic CapEx, and then renovation. They have it at 450 right now. And then like 50K in like closing costs. You know what I mean? Like transfer tax, all that. So we'll be all in at 3 mil, which is nice for the listeners. It's a nice round number. 3 mil. The property last year in 2021 grossed 507,000. They netted 222, right? But it's a 15 unit hotel and then 3 single families. They didn't rent out any of the single families, which represent approximately like 160 to 170K in increased income right off the bat. No, right. Not even including renovation.
Right.
They have a very old website. They are not on Airbnb or VRBO, and they are working there all day in their 80s. Wild. So that we brought Rafa in. He's going to implement his whole process. We have a similar one, but I like his better. So we'll put it on Airbnb, VRBO after it's renovated, which will significantly increase income. Renting out those other 3 will increase income. Because we don't need an office on site anymore, there's going to be 3 vending machines and 2 credit card operated laundry. And then there's a huge garage to convert into income. So pro forma numbers, we think it'll probably generate 890K gross. Probably. That's our goal on an annual basis. At 50% expense ratio, that would net us 445 a year. So the returns are really good. Yeah, debt service is going to cost whatever, I don't know, 200K. So returns are solid. We sold 100K shares. They get 8% preferred return while we have their 100K. And then they always have 4% equity, like the whole time, even after a refi. So
I'm assuming you're eliminating staff there too, right? You're probably going to get rid of, or not get rid of, but you don't technically need anybody there if you're running as a short term.
We're going to need 2 people there. We need an on-site, an on-call maintenance person, and one of our cleaners that's already there. She's going to stay on site too, because it needs daily upkeep.
Yeah.
It's very weather takes intensive, just the environment there. The property needs constant upkeep. So it needs to be cleaned every day, things like that.
Yeah. So we have there's a lady who's worked there for a long time. The place is super clean. It's just not updated. So she'll stay on staff. Rafa will oversee her, because there's a lot of units. We'll still have staff on site, but it's going to be so much more streamlined and lean and honestly better than what's in place. So,
dude, that's freaking awesome. So you're doubling your NOI.
That's the goal, basically, to double the NOI. I feel like the projection is pretty good and very accurate. Like I feel really comfortable about our ability to make that. So yeah, that's good. And then we just got another 7 unit under contract like a week ago. So that's not short-term rental. That's apartments.
That's awesome,
last important note, I was not looking to buy any more short-term rentals. I was looking for apartments, but the opportunity presented itself at that wedding. So I just gave it a rip.
Dude, I love it. Man, it's literally just you just asking a question and being shot down. The guy saying you're too young.
Yeah, it was totally fine. I guess I asked him. And then I established rapport and talked to him like a friend.
Yeah.
And just learned about his life, and then he was good. So it's cool.
Dude, that's crazy, man. So what's next for you? Like, what's the next thing? This is obviously one little tiny piece of the step. What's 2023 shaping out for you?
I just want to get to 2 things. I built out the team. So the real estate sales team is still totally part of my life. I very much am in an oversight role there. I don't represent buyers anymore, but I do represent listings. So I have a great director of operations. So we'll still build that up for the active income. And then really, 50% of my time is in real estate investing as well. So I want to get to 100 units as rapidly as possible. We are spending significant time, energy, and money on getting into contact with as many people who own apartment complexes as possible and sending out LOI. So it's really just keeping building those businesses, dude. I don't know.
What cities are you looking at? So everybody listening right now, if there's wholesalers or anybody out there, they can reach out to Nick.
Yeah. So here's my ideal buy box right now. Is Michigan and Ohio. I'd love anywhere close to Norfolk, Michigan. I'm in Metro Detroit, but Michigan and Ohio, we're looking for 5+ units, light value add. So I don't want like a shell that I have to rebuild.
Right.
Light value add. So I'd like to be able to increase, do light renovation, increase rent. No cap on budget or purchase price. So, and looking for apartments primarily. If you feel like you have a great deal outside of that, obviously, short-term, mid-term rental, I love that stuff too. Whatever. If you think it's good enough, just email it to me and I'll totally underwrite it.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, dude. I love the whole, part one, breaking things down. Part two is like, we kind of dove into the weeds now, what this looks like, your real estate career, the outcome of what all those, potentially what people would see as negative. And I guess you could too in a lot of ways, but there was positives that came, tremendous positives that came. It shaped the way you are now. Dude, it's cool. I love stories like this where it's just like, you've been through the weeds, dragged behind a car for however long. And a lot of this stuff, like you did to yourself in a lot of ways, you know what I mean? Like you talked about it. Like I did this to myself. And then now you're purposely like some of the words that you say, like I'm reevaluating how I think, like I'm analyzing how I do everything. Like most people in those situations don't step back and they're not aware enough to even be like, okay, I need to reevaluate my own thoughts. And you like now in this space, like are doing those kinds of things, dude. And I think it's such a inspirational story, not only for myself, but so many people that are out there listening that, just things can be difficult, but there's also like another side of life that you haven't experienced yet. And just like that investor told you, like, you're not broke, like you're not broke. You have experiences and things that have happened and have shaped and molded you. And I think that a lot of times we get lost in that doom and gloom, or even feel sorry for ourselves. Like, oh, I'm dealing with this, or this happened and whatnot. And there's always a brighter side. And I think that it goes back to reflection, looking at yourself in the mirror, like, literally getting in front of a mirror and staring at yourself and be like, dude, what am I about? What am I doing? I'm pretty sure you've been in front of that mirror plenty of times. In fact, you probably still do it on a regular basis. So dude, I'm so thankful that you came in here and that you talked about this stuff and that, we're seeing the sunshine now, you know what I mean? We're seeing that other side of things. You're preparing yourself for your family and your future and everybody around you. And you're imploring people to be better. You know what I mean? Yeah, man, it's awesome. I dig it. I dig it for sure.
We're gonna close off, but before we do, Nick, we didn't do this last time. So being that this is the big break show, I want you to tell us just really quick, what was your big break in life that got you to this point where you're at today?
There was not one big break. There were many, many breaks along the way, which I didn't know. Honestly, Rafa is just a lot of leaps of faith along the way. Honestly, getting around people who could see, who had a better point of view, trusting their opinion, and doing stuff even when scared. So, I could give you a lot of like individual times, getting sober, opening my first gym, getting into real estate, that first deal, that first purchase in Traverse City. And I guess to zoom back, the other big break is like, I guess all the panic and anxiety stuff, but I don't know, dude. Just, yeah, dude, I don't know how to answer that, but there's so many things, man. A lot of leaps of faith.
Yeah. You've only been the second person to ever answer like that. That's just like, there's been a ton of big breaks and there's just like a multitude of different breaks that happened. And it was just like a trajectory that you had two decisions to make and you made the one that was best for you. That was that break at that moment. So that's awesome. Sometimes people have that one big break, which is like, boom, I get it. I changed my mindset, yada, yada, yada. But I think you're in a different situation because everybody's got their own life experiences. They all deal with things and everybody deals with things in a different way. So Nick, one of the things that we also talk about in here is an actionable step that somebody could take after listening to part one and part two. Like, what would you say would be that actionable step that somebody can literally take to either improve their lives or go in the direction they want? Or, if they're having suicidal thoughts or they're dealing with anxiety and depression, or, what would be that, that kind of point of view that you would give as being a person who's lived that to somebody that's listening, right now?
Yeah, easy. Find somebody who has what you want and listen to them. It's literally it. It's the most basic thing I can tell you. I've had to reuse that over and over. I did that in CrossFit. I did that in sobriety. I do that in real estate. I do that intentionally with people who have great marriages and are great business operators. Just find somebody who has what you want and be of service to them. And when it comes time to make a decision, lean on others' perspective, right? Like, I don't have the full picture and I'm usually emotionally involved in some capacity. So you have to learn to have faith and do scary things and trust others who know more than you.
I love that.
Love that. Hey, really quick too. Give those books that you read, if you know them off the top of your head, for the money thing.
Oh my God. The best thing, I actually get this question all the time, and I literally have a templated text that I send out to people. Can I give it to you for your show notes?
Yeah, that'd be perfect. I know people are going to ask.
Yeah,
I want to know. Yeah.
Yeah, Rafa's going to go out and buy those books right now. That's what he was going to do. I was actually going to.
Anything that's recommended.
They're so good.
I was going to do that too. Nick, where can everybody find you at, man? Like if they're looking to shoot you a deal, if they want to just chat with you, if they want to, connect with you, follow Nick on Instagram, and yeah, let us know where you're at, man, where people can find you.
Okay, so TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram, Nick Bastianelli. The spelling will obviously be in the show notes. And then if you want to see my real estate sales team, at the Bastianelli team, all those places. Phone number, you can actually post this. This is actually through my CRM. It's intentional. So I can track who contacts me. 248-826-1533. And then my direct email is nick@bastianelli.team. So you can reach out to me in any of those ways. You guys prompted me to make an online course. I'm like 70% done, and that will be released in the next month. So that'll be cool too.
Hell yeah.
What's that course going to be about?
I got to figure out a name, maybe Agent Accelerator or something like that. But from the day I started in real estate, I documented all my processes and procedures. So it's going to be for not real estate investment focused, real estate sales focused. It's literally my entire business front to back, like what I do from the second I get any sort of leader inquiry all the way to long after close. So you can create like a repeatable, referable business that grows without a bunch of ad spend, honestly. So
I love that.
It's good.
Build your book of business, sales funnel, all that other stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Right now poses an interesting time for real estate agents, man. I feel like there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be hurting over that. I just read today before we got on the show, interest hikes are coming again. And
yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, I think the next 6 months to a year are going to be very interesting for a lot of agents, in a lot of ways.
Yeah. I think there's I don't know the exact number, 600 or 800,000 agents who haven't sold a house yet this year.
Wow.
Yeah, so there were a ton of people who flooded the industry because they thought it was easy cash, which I think is comical. But yeah, there's the amount of people who hold their license is just going to be dramatically cut.
Yeah.
And I'm viewing this as a time to invest and gain market share. I got to be intentional, but a lot of people are just shrinking and cutting all their spend and getting real afraid, real scarce in their mindset.
Yep. But there's also a tremendous amount of opportunity right now. Like there really is. There's another side of this. I mean, you guys are making a deal happen right now, $2.5 million deal.
I think this is probably the best opportunity since 2008, personally.
I agree with you.
The amount of people who are afraid is so irrational. Like a 7% interest rate is not actually bad. Like I'm just sitting here like I'm so jacked because all the buyers are gone and all these sellers are becoming negotiable and open to land contracts, seller finance, subject to carrybacks, weird equity structures. Like I think people who want to get in I'm so jacked to be real estate investing right now. I'm so pumped to have the knowledge to take advantage of this scenario. Honestly.
Yeah. I agree with you, man.
Yeah.
I'm on that same train, dude. We're on the same train.
Gotta get in the ring, dude.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, there it is, folks. We heard Nick's story in part 1 of this episode, which you guys have probably heard of the Big Break Show, which I think was episode 53. And then I could be wrong on that. So if you guys are listening to this, please like and share this episode with people that you like, care, and resonate with. Even if you don't like this episode, share it with somebody that you think that potentially would. But Nick, dude, I'm super excited that you were here. I think you brought tremendous value. I love where your mindset's at. I look at the growth that you've had over the last 15 years or whatnot. And I'm excited to see where you and Rafa are going on this new journey that you guys are working on. I expect there to be more of these that are happening in the future.
That's the goal. Do our best to make it happen.
Thanks for coming on, buddy. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Good to hang out.